So I've seen some comments and some people saying that they're struggling with doing the high threat zone, the tier 3 zone in Modern Warfare Zombies. And I can understand that. It is a very difficult area. It's very small and congested, and the enemies that you're going to find there are going to be much stronger. They're much faster. They're going to deal a whole lot more damage than what you find in the other tiers, and of course that makes sense. You're also going to find the occasional mega abominations. There's plenty more of the disciples, mimics, manglers in tier 3 than you see in the other zones. And it can be a very challenging area to try to get into and meet with any kind of success. The contracts that you do in tier 3 are much more difficult, they're much harder. You can do some of them by yourself, but some of them you're going to need some teams. And the rewards are usually much better. Sometimes they're much, much worse. But certain schematics can only be found by completing tier 3 contracts. And if you're struggling and if you're having some issues, then this video is hopefully going to help you out and make a little more sense and maybe give you some pointers to have more success in the chaos that is tier 3. Sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Yeah, right. Honestly, though, it's not that bad once you start realizing how tier 3 operates and how to survive it. Now, one thing that you'll see when you look out over all the posts, content creators, things like that, people say running. Running in tier 3, that's the key. If you want to survive in tier 3, you've got to run. And if you hang out in tier 3, or if you even look at it, what you end up seeing is some poor bastard or a group of bastards running for their lives with this horde of zombies behind them. And I'm going to tell you right now that running just simply isn't the best way to handle yourself in tier 3. It's actually several different aspects that keep you safe or that make it something that you can do. It's a combination of how you move, what your loadout is, and what your plan is. And when you do all of those, you're going to start seeing more success in the tier 3 zone. The one thing that's really crappy about the tier 3 zone is that the rewards you need in order to get the gear to survive in tier 3, you have to do tier 3 in order to get them. It's kind of like a little vicious circle here. So exactly how am I supposed to survive tier 3 in order to get the gear and the equipment to make the loadouts that will let me survive in tier 3? And we're going to cover that in this video. So when you look at the story mode, you don't actually have to go in to tier 3 for anything that's in Act 1 and anything that's in Act 2. They don't require that of you. Act 3, however, does have two missions that do require some tier 3 operations. The first one in the tier 2 section of Act 3 is Most Firepower, to pack a punch a weapon to level 3, kill 100 zombies, and then kill a mega bomb with that same Pack 3 gun. My advice, go after the mega bomb, let the zombies happen naturally. And then further on down, when you get to tier 4, you have the Spring Cleaning mission, which is to clear an infested stronghold in the high threat zone, which is tier 3. So there are two story missions that are going to require you to go into the high threat zone in order to progress. So you're going to have to deal with it in order for you to unlock the access to Act 4, which is the Bad Signal mission, which gets you into the Dark Ether. That's commonly referred to as Tier 4, the Dark Ether, and then the Elder Sigil, which gets you to the bigger area. They call that Tier 5. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know if it's any harder or more difficult. There's definitely more things coming at you, and it's a lot more compact. And the Elder Sigil Tier 5 Dark Ether is something to behold. And the classified schematics in there are well worth the effort you put into it. So let's talk about surviving in Tier 3, and how do you do that if running is not the way?
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Well, if that's the case, then how do you explain this? I'm clearly in Tier 3. I have been for a little while. Just looking at the map to mark what exfil I want to take. And I'm not too concerned about movement. And I know what you're saying, Max. You're standing on top of a building. These zombies can't get up there. That's how you're able to completely stand still and not be running around or acting crazy. No, they can get up here. They can get up here anytime they want. I'm just not going to let them get up here. And I'm definitely not going to let them mass up on me. And if you look down, once we get back up on the wall, you can see there are zombies all milling about down there. I'm just not aggroing them. Now, I know you can also say, well, Max, still you're on top of a building, you're on top of a roof, so of course that's why you're not getting aggroed, and that's why they're not coming at you. Here you go. Now you'll notice they're down there, and every now and then one or two of them will take notice of me, and then they will come up. I did draw their aggro, and they're going to come towards me. The point being here is that instead of movement and instead of running and constantly being on the move so that you can't get chased down, you should focus more on control. Control the area that you're in. Keep the numbers down. Keep the aggro down. Don't act crazy. Don't act stupid. And you'll be able to do this. You'll be able to stand here, and it's so much more manageable. Occasionally they do come up. We'll take them out one at a time. Easy peasy. Control is way more important. Now you look here. Just got into a big fight, cleared an area. I've got 9 rounds left. So I marked the closest ammo depot, and I'm heading that way. And you'll notice, yes, I am running, and I'm sprinting, but I'm not running or sprinting from anything. Just trying to cover the distance between me and that ammo depot. And there's a big difference between that. It's one thing to run to an area that you're wanting to go to with nothing in between you and it, because the area is under control, and running from a giant mass of destruction and death behind you. So I notice that there's a turret up, so I'm completely safe here, so that's great. But you could also say that, well, look at you. You got Pack 3 guns, you got legendaries. Well, here you go. This is with what? A blue tool and a Pack 2 gun. And here I am, just entered the Tier 3 zone, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to establish control and not let things get out of hand. So another reason why, if you watch my content, you know I'm almost always carrying thermals. So here we are. We can scout the area and look for anybody that's taken notice of me. You see, this one did, but the ones behind it didn't. So I'm not going to aggro them. And this one, now he sees me. And I see the guy up top there coming towards me. We're going to do slow, very purposeful, gain control, and then maintain it so it doesn't get out of hand. Now let me show you what happens when something throws a wrench into the works, like this. I'm a sucker. I don't want to see anybody downed, and I'm going to try to save this guy. So I start heading that way, check on the map, see where he is, and I've got a couple problems I need to solve real quick. Which we do, and now I'm going to head straight towards him. And his plea disappeared, but nobody left the game, which means he probably got picked up, but because I started running, I've already created a little bit of a horde behind me. So there's at least 2 spawns, so I guess there's 8. And now we're just going to try to get out of the zone. Continue to head up the mountain, and now there's a spawn to my left. They're probably all going to key on me. So now I think I've got about 12 behind me. There's another spawn to the right, so we're up to 16. And another spawn to the right, including a hellhound, which I can't outrun, so I've got to turn and engage him. And there's another group to the left with a sprinter. So I'm going to throw my decoy now, as I'm getting closer to the Tier 2 zone to get out. But I've got to do something about that sprinter. After that grenade goes down, he'll catch me. And luckily I do get the cryo freeze and the line on him. There's an abomination to my right, another spawn to my left. I'm low on plates. I just need to get out of here. I should try to plate up, but they're not going to let me. So we're going to turn around and engage all of these dogs. And once they're down, I get taken a hit, and we're going to keep running. I'm hoping my sprint will get the distance I need. He is fast, but I can get him with the cryo, slow him down a little bit, but there are more sprinters, and now I've run into my first Tier 2 spawn changing into this zone. So we're going to try to get distance, plate up while we're doing it. Again, turn around, try to slow them down. They took all my plates, so we're going to try to plate up as much as we can again, get some distance, and then we're going to turn and engage. And here we go. Now that cryo freeze is paying dividends, and I got the sprinters down. So now it's just the original group back there that's going to be the slow runners, and I can take them out without them closing that gap on me too bad. And if I have to, I can walk backwards, which I'm doing, just to keep the space between me and them. And we're starting to run a little low on ammunition, but hopefully we can get through this and get all these guys down. Nice little ammo drop in front, and there we go. So now we had to exit the zone, but at least we're back under control and we did make it out alive. That's what happens when you have to run without a plan. So let me show you what it looks like when you run with a plan. Now my goal here is to do this contract I've got highlighted. It is a deliver cargo contract, and this is a pretty easy one to do by yourself. And I'm coming in with a fully health vehicle, but I am not going to drive all the way up to that contract. In fact, I'm about 200 and some meters away, and this is where I'm parking my truck. From the rest of the way, I'm taking it on foot. I want to maximize the usage of my sprint, which kind of turns into a mistake here because that disciple spawned. But I want to be able to put distance between me and these bad guys because I know that I'm going to create a horde behind me from running. Now, two things I want to point out to you about zombies. First, they don't use windows. They always go for doors. So if you jump through a window, you know you've bought time. The second thing is they don't do good with hurdles. So that little hurdle right there, when they hit that, because they are chasing me directly, they're going to end up having to go around it, which is buying me time, which is what I need. I'll hurdle here, and we'll head over towards the steps. We'll get a little hurdle. And when I get up to where the contract is, I'm going to throw my decoy. I throw my decoy in front of me and to a place where I'm not going to be when it ends. I'm hoping to gather them over where you see they are now, and then I will hurdle and jump and get through. So we're heading back towards where the contract is. I did get one guy, but we're going to hurdle and hurdle a second time, and now it's safe for me to plate up. I don't have to worry about him coming behind me. Now I can hear this dog coming, but I know I'm close enough to the wall. We're off and away. Throw my grenade in front of where I'm going to be. There was already a player here, so he drew off most of this fire, and I get into the truck. And now it's just simply taking this route that you're going to see here in order to complete this contract. Don't have to worry about the mega abomination, and I'm just adjusting my my heading, I guess you would say, in small amounts, so when the helicopter does shoot at me, it's going to shoot where it thinks I'm going to be, which is not where I'm going to be at all. When you come off of this hill, though, be careful, because if you're still on the gas, you're going to see it's going to spin out a little as that front tire makes the contact, but to get it back under control, still in pretty good shape, and we're going to complete this contract. And hooray. So we'll go get our awesome rewards. Not today, we're not going to. So, awesome. Now, I'm done. The other guy there, he's got a scorcher, so he's going up in the air and parachuting. He's safe. I'm just trying to get out of this area. And I know my truck's already beat up. It's over halfway dead, and it doesn't take long when you're hitting zombies in the Tier 3 zone, which it's almost impossible to avoid them all. So what I'm going to do is head back to the area where this all started, where I dropped off that other LTV, the first one that I came in with, assuming somebody else didn't grab it and take off in it. So I'm just taking a look around. My goal is to destroy this truck. You should never leave a badly damaged or low-fueled truck out in the open, because some poor bastard's going to try to use it to get out of a tight situation, and he's going to jump in and it's already going to be almost dead, if not dead already. So either destroy your trucks or get them out and repair them and leave them somewhere for someone. So I'm heading over here. I checked the map just to make sure, yep, my truck is still there. That's good. Only going to take a few more hits before this is dead. And now it's critical. So I'm out, and I'm heading to where I know that LTV that I left is sitting. I'm not going to take a completely direct route towards it. I am going to bob and weave a little bit, and we're paying attention to the spawns ahead of us, but not so much what's behind us, because we are out of decoy grenades. So we're going to run up here, get into our full health truck with plenty of gas, and we're heading home. And that's how you run with a plan. Not just running around hoping to keep that distance and keep them off you, but this is actually, this is what I wanted to do. This was the goal, this was the plan, Running with a plan is completely different than just simply running. So what's the deal here? Because, I spend time showing you clips where I'm showing you that movement doesn't matter, and then I show you a clip where movement is pretty much everything. Well, the point here is if you've gone into Tier 3 and you've struggled, and maybe you got downed, sent back to the lobby, or maybe you go in and you barely get in there and then all of a sudden everything's just blowing up in your face and you turn around, you run away, and you're like, I can't do this. Look at it this way. There's several different facets that you need to think of when going into the Tier 3 zone. And I think the most important of them is, what is the plan? What's the plan for going in there? Are you going in there just to do the one quick contract and get out? If so, bring in a vehicle, plan it somewhere so that you have a way to run to that truck and get out. Are you going to go in and do several contracts? Are you going to stay up on the roofs? Are you going to, what area are you going to be in? What's the plan? And almost important is to recognize when the plan has broken and it's no longer valid and it's time to get out. At that point, you head to the closest edge of the map on Tier 3, get back into Tier 2. Go back to Tier 1 if you have to, it doesn't matter. But find a way to get out, regroup yourself and say, okay, what's going on? What happened? Why didn't my plan work? Readjust your plan and try again. So have a plan and know when that plan's not working. The second thing is to establish control once you enter Tier 3 and maintain that control. You do that by taking out zombies before they can hoard up. If you see an abomination and you can't take it out, avoid it. Watch for dogs. Watch for the sprinters. Be aware of who you're fighting and what danger they pose to you so that you know this is a guy I got to take out. This is a guy that I got to avoid. And once you start to lose control, again, just like with the plan, it's time to go. Get out, regroup, think about what happened. See what adjustments you need to make so that once you establish control, you can keep it and maintain it through the time you're in there. Third thing to point out is movement. Yes, there may be times where you're running for your life. There may be times where you're just running. There may be times where you're walking. But your movement needs to be precise and purposeful. Why are you running? Do you need to use your sprint, or are you just being lazy because you want to get someplace faster? It'd be better to save that sprint for when you absolutely need it. And don't just run willy-nilly, just running around with your head cut off, because you're going to run yourself into a problem that you may or may not be able to handle. And it's very easy in Tier 3 to get mobbed. Remember, zombies don't use windows, and zombies also, for some reason, can't cross barriers that well. So use them to your advantage. It's not just about climbing ladders and staying on roofs. The last thing I want to point out is your loadout. What did you bring with you, and how effective is it going to be? And when you do that, only bite off as much as you can chew. If you go in there with a Pack 2 gun with a rare ether tool, you're not going to be taking out too many mega abominations. So don't go near them. If you can go in with regenerating plates, with the golden plates, and with the ether blade, your options have increased and you can do more. This also means that if you have friends, if you're going in as a squad instead of going in solo, what can you handle? And don't engage anything that's beyond your ability to handle with what your loadout is going to let you do. And that really is the thing that makes Tier 3 either a success or a failure. And if you can keep track of those and work those and keep them always in your favor, you're going to see a lot more success and a lot more fun when going into the Tier 3 than you did before. So that's my advice to you guys. And it's hard. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So, if it was, everybody would be doing it. But with those things in mind, and with a little bit of plan, preparation, watch your movement, maintain control, have the right loadout, you'll be able to head into Tier 3 on a regular basis, and you won't have to worry about going down and getting sent back to the lobby. So with that, guys, that's all the information I have for you. And hopefully you'll be able to head on into Tier 3 now and meet with great success.
Well, just a second there, Professor.
Yeah, no, we're not even close to being done. Let's talk actually about your loadout, because as you saw, I used several different loadouts when I went in there, and I just want to cover what I prefer to use when I go into Tier 3. And when I usually go into Tier 3, I am solo. So my plan is to maybe do a couple contracts and see what I can get done, but I'm not committed to staying in there, and I'm definitely not going to be running around doing everything and anything I can possibly find. So the first thing I want to talk about is your primary gun. And that I think is going to be the most important. Now, my preference, and I'm not telling you this is what you should do, because a gun that works for me may not work for you. A gun that works for you may not work for me. There are some baselines, there are some guns that are just not going to get it done. But the one I like to use, and that you see in most of my video clips, is the battle rifle, the Bass B. I like the battle rifle because if you look at it in comparison to assault rifles, yeah, it doesn't have the rate of fire, but it does better in range, it does better in accuracy, and it does better in damage. And also when you look at marksman rifles, while they will do a little more damage and they have a little bit spikes in accuracy, they don't have that many rounds. And it's very easy to find yourself in an ammo shortage when you're in the Tier 3 zone just because of the quantity of enemies that you're possibly going to fight. So I use the Bass B, and this is the one that I have, and I'll show you here. If you want to copy my loadout, give it a try, let me know. If you think it could be better, by all means, let me know, because I'm not married to this gun. I've played enough games where I got stuck in this. I love this gun. This gun's great. This gun's awesome. And then I would try to put that weapon into situations where it's just not the best option to handle what's going on. But I think I can make it. I think I can make it work. I'm going to do this. Oh no, this gun's good. It can. I'm not married to this. I could change this in an instant. As long as it's for the better, then it's for the better, and it'll become my new standard. Some things that I always do whenever I make a gun to go into Tier 3 is I use the thermal, I use a silencer, and I give it the most amount of ammunition as it possibly can handle, the biggest magazine size. The thermals are just my personal preference because I like to see, and target identification. The silencer so things don't get out of hand, because if you're shooting off guns that are loud, everything around you is going to hear it, and they're going to come running to investigate. So that's why I use the silencers, just to help maintain that control, the thermals to help sight things quicker, and then the most ammunition I can have as far as magazine size. The rest of that is just anything that increases my range and my accuracy, because I can't stand shooting at something and the bullets aren't hitting because of a game mechanic. I want it as accurate as possible. So that's my main gun. As far as a secondary gun, my suggestion for you would be to bring either a handgun, a launcher, or a melee weapon. I prefer to bring the handguns. The reason I do that, submachine guns also work, but I like the handguns because you get a little bit of speed boost when you're carrying them. Melee weapons will give you much faster speed and can do some decent damage, specifically the Tonfa for some reason. But the issue I have with the melee weapons is if you can hit them with the melee weapon, they can hit you. And there's probably more of them than there are of you, and you're probably getting hit by more than one. So a melee weapon could be very dangerous. The launcher, the RGL, has long been a staple for people who want to go into Tier 3. Just the sheer amount of damage you can do, the clearing out, the area of effect. If you hit a horde with an RGL, there's not much of a horde left afterwards. But one of the issues with that is the RGL is really only a good choice if you bring the perk PhD Flopper. That makes it so that the grenades, they don't blow up in your face and damage you. And it means that by taking in that weapon, you're also allocating another spot specifically for a perk can that you're going to bring in. And that can be a little questionable. But You need to weigh that out personally. Is, do I need the extra perks, or is having this amazing weapon to clear out AoEs and diminish hordes, is that worth it or not? So that's a personal preference you do, but keep in mind choosing the RGL is going to limit you somewhat on what you can put into your rucksack. That's why I like to go with the handguns. The handguns give you that speed burst when you need to run, and they can also deal out a really good amount of damage, especially in close range. Now, I usually was using the heat source, but let me go over what I would put in a handgun if I was going to make one and bring it in. The first thing is we're definitely going to put the largest magazine size on, and we definitely need to bring a Kimbo. Those two are the requirements, so that you get the two guns at one time and you've got as many rounds as you possibly can. Because I'm expecting this to be a short range clear out, I want to go with the highest rate of fire trigger that I can find. And there aren't too many options, but this one does boost that rate of fire. So we're going to choose that. I've got two more slots, and as you know, handguns, when you do a Kimbo, can be hard to aim. A laser is a good thing to put on them. Since, back in the DMZ days, lasers you didn't want to use because players could see them. Zombies don't care. It doesn't matter if they see them or not. And I usually prefer to put the green lasers on just because I can see them better. That is a personal preference. If the red ones work for you, great. Tier 3, it's kind of a red area anyway. So for me, it's questionable as to whether or not I'm going to see them. So that's why I go with the green ones. And the last thing that I'm going to put on this is I'm going to put on a muzzle because, as I said before, I don't want to broadcast to everything on the map where I'm at. All I want to do is get a nice little silencer on there to limit the key up and aggro area as far as the zombies go, because tier 3 is a tight space and you don't need to be gathering everybody towards you. But again, these are just backup guns. I'm going to do most of my work with the Bass B, but this is the secondary weapon that I usually choose. Once you've leveled both of these guns up, you can put any of the attachments that I've used on them, and there's nothing spectacular that you have to have. Again, you're going to want an ether tool or a pack-a-punch before you head in there. But these are just baseline guns, and they have served me quite well as far as the fun and adventure that I've personally had in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So this is the two that I use. That's my primary and my secondary. So for the tactical, there's almost no question that you're going to want to bring decoy grenades. Everything else is, it is usable, but the decoy grenade just gets you out of so many sticky situations or prevents one from happening that it pretty much outweighs the use of anything else. Yes, smoke grenades and stun grenades to buy you some time, etc. And especially now, they did tone the decoys down, but now they brought them back to a longer duration, so that's great. But decoy grenades are definitely the way to go. And as far as your lethal, it's questionable as well. There is some merit to bringing the throwing knife because it will insta-down something. But I usually just bring the Semtex. It's what I'm used to. It's what I've used all the time. So there you go. Those are all personal choices, but the decoy you really should have. Now I want to talk in depth here about your field upgrade. Energy mine's great. You drop a little bomb on the ground, put it in front of you so anything behind you hits it. In Tier 3 it might kill them, it might not, but it's definitely going to do some damage and slow them down. Frenzied Guard, you really got to be a brave soul to use that, to draw all the aggro. Yeah, when you get a kill it replaces your armor, but you're in Tier 3, and if your guns aren't capable of killing them that fast, you're just bringing everything on you. It could work. We're going to come back to the healing aura. I want to talk real quick about Frost Blast, which is nice because it slows the enemy. But they break out pretty quick, and it does create a shield around you, but I don't use it that often. Ether Shroud and Tesla Storm we're going to go into depth, but let me go back here and cover the healing aura. When you have these tactical the field upgrades, you need to use them at the right time. A great example of this is the healing ore is not going to help you solo, but if you're in a group, that's great because if somebody goes down, you can revive them real quick. But when someone goes down, you need to give them a few seconds because whatever killed them is probably still standing there. And if you just pop that and bring them right back up, you haven't improved their situation because now they're still down with plates, they're potentially still surrounded, and whatever beat their ass is about to do it again. Give it a second. Ether Shroud also has a potential negative that when you throw it, if there's nothing else in the area, like say you're running solo or your teammates are far away, when you throw this, the zombies just stop. Like, oh, there was a guy here, but now he's gone. So what happens? Well, they're going to stand there, and if they've cornered you or pinned you somewhere, you're not getting out. So unless you've got a way to get out of the situation you're in, you're going to still be in that situation once this field upgrade ends. And the same thing can happen to you with the Tesla Storm. Yeah, it does do some damage. It's nice that it changed to friendly players. But it's not enough to really kill anything in Tier 3. It's just going to make them stop and surround you. So the trick with these two field upgrades is you need to learn to recognize that moment right before things have gotten really bad and before you're stuck. And you throw it and get out of that position before it traps you. Like I said, it takes some getting used to and some recognition, but these upgrades are not going to save you if you're in a bad spot. They'll save you right before you're in a bad spot, absolutely. And personally, I use the Tesla Storm in pretty much every run that I do because I do that. I throw it before I'm in trouble. It's like I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it like, oh, I'm about to be in trouble. Boom, throw it, and then I just bolt out, get away. So this is my standard loadout for doing anything in Tier 3. It's what works for me. I like the way the weapons go, the distances, the range, the accuracy. This is what works for me. Might work for you, it might not, but you need to find a loadout that gets the job done. So I'm going to talk now about different acquisitions and what you can bring in order to help you out in there. Now, the first thing I'm going to say, we're going to look at tools and crystals. The uncommon ether tool, the green one, that ain't going to help you. It is better than nothing. If it's the only thing you've got, okay. But, man, it is just not going to be able to get the job done. And the rare ether tool, the blue one, is questionable as well. It's better than nothing. And if it's the best you got, it's the best you got. But by far, the epic ether tool, or the purple one, is the baseline. That is the least that you should go in there with. And you're going to find that going with the epic is going to give you enough damage output in order to stay alive against most of the adversaries you're going to see in the Tier 3 zone. Obviously, using the legendary ether tool would definitely be the better way to go if you have one and you can do it. And this one makes it kind of, almost a little bit of easy mode. The extra damage you're doing is going to be more than enough for any zombies you run across, even the armored ones. You may still have to put quite a few rounds into specials or like a mega abomination, but overall, legendary ether tool will get everything done you need to. The same thing kind of goes with your crystals. A raw crystal, the purple one, not going to do that much. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to do that much. Your baseline should be the refined, which would be equivalent of the Pack-a-Punch 2. I wouldn't go in with just a Pack-a-Punch 1. It's going to take too many bullets. You're going to get too mobbed. Pack-a-Punch 2 would be the least that you should go in there with. I actually can't make those two tools just because I haven't unlocked them yet in all the contracts I've done. And of course the flawless Ethereum crystal, the basically legendary one, which gets you to Pack-a-Punch 3 right out of the gate. That, again, paired up with a legendary ether tool is going to make everything so much better. The combination of a legendary ether tool and a flawless crystal will let you take out any zombies you run across. You'll do well against the specials, so the disciples, the manglers, and the mimics. But you'll still have to put quite a few rounds into a mega bomb, even with those two high power guns. So there you go. I would say if you're going to go with anything, epic ether tool or a legendary ether tool, and then the refined Ethereum or the Flawless, basically Pack-a-Punch 2 or Pack-a-Punch 3. But it really comes out to the best that you can go in there with. Now, I also want to point out that you get tools from rewards, but you can always Pack-a-Punch depending on the essence you have. So if you have to slight something, I would go more focused on your tools and the crystals you can get in the game. You can get that in the match. Maybe stay in Tier 2 a little bit until you get some money and get your Pack-a-Punch going. So let's talk here real quick about the perks you can bring. Deadshot Daiquiri is great. You know, it automatically targets that critical as long as you don't move the sight off. It's a good perk, but to be honest with you, I think the slots you have in your rucksack, there are better options. Death Perception can be very handy. It lets you know when there's a horde of zombies or maybe a special zombie around the corner or inside that building. And you're not going to do that much looting when you're in Tier 3, at least you won't at first. So while Death Perception does definitely have some advantages, it's also kind of questionable as to whether or not that's worth bringing and taking up a spot in your rucksack. But ultimately, that is going to be up to you. Elemental Pop Can, I think, is a very good recommendation. Just because every bullet could possibly do an ammo mod, and you'll see times when you're engaging them, and boy, that dead wire was great. Or the brain rot, which suddenly made a new friend for you, is going to be very helpful. Elemental Pop, good choice. Juggernog is also a very good choice. That extra health for when they break through your shields, which it's going to happen. That might be the difference between you get to live to fight another day or you go down. So I would recommend that Juggernaut be on the list of perks that you bring in with you right from the start. PhD Flopper is only going to matter if you've chosen to bring in that RGL. If you're not bringing a launcher, don't need to worry about this one too much. It does have some advantages, but unless you've got the RGL in your secondary or primary slot, you can leave PhD Flopper behind. Quick Revive is great if you're going in with friends. But if you're not going in with friends and you're going in solo, this isn't going to help you all that much. So it's very situational. Depends on whether or not you're going in with a squad or if you're just going in by yourself. But there are better options for Quick Revive to be taking up a spot in your rucksack. Speed Cola is almost a given. Even if you're fortunate enough to have already unlocked the golden plates that regenerate, there are still times when you have to plate up in the midst of fighting. And just the sheer reload speed that you get from that Speed Cola is going to be incredibly helpful. So Speed Cola is a definite. Stamina Up is another great one to have. Obviously, you run and sprint faster. And as I said, there are times when you may need to run. So being able to do it much faster, that's almost a no-brainer. So Stamina Up is usually one of the perks that I always make sure that I bring in. And finally, with Tombstone Soda, unless you're setting up a tombstone or you're expecting to get taken down, then it's really not going to help you. And it's not worth putting it into your rucksack to take it in there. So unless you're doing a tombstone setup, leave it behind. So let's talk about ammo mods. They're incredibly helpful and they're great, but I usually don't bring them, mainly because I think they're the easiest thing to find out there. If you do any kind of a contract, it's common to get one as a reward. When you kill a special or an elite zombie, they drop these. So they're easy to find on the ground, but any one of them would help. Just don't see that it's worth it to bring it in your rucksack. But my favorite ones out of these are going to be the Cryo Freeze and the Brain Rot, just because it's nice to have a friend when you get in there. And it's even extra special when you turn a special zombie in. Or the Cryo Freeze, which slows them down. Again, when you're dealing with sprinters and some zombies that can outrun you, being able to slow them down with just by shooting them, it can be very helpful. But any one of these ammo mods, if you don't have one on your gun and you see one, just put it on, And maybe you'll catch one later. So maybe, if you get your Shatter Blast first and you don't really want that, put it on. It's free. It does have an effect, and it can be helpful. So would I bring them in? No. I'm not going to use a space in the rucksack just for an ammo mod. I'll find them when I'm in there. That's my theory. That's my look on it. I do want to point out one thing about Deadwire, that it's me. It's not Deadwire, so it's me. But with Deadwire, I usually, when it triggers, I waste bullets on a guy I can't damage. I'll just keep loading into him, and then I realize, oh, he's getting shocked, so I stop it. And, I'm wasting rounds and time. And napalm is nice, but boy, it just doesn't seem to burn tier 3 zombies all that well. I mean, it will, but it just doesn't seem that the damage output is something worth it, which is why I stick with the cryo freeze, because it's an immediate slow, or the brain rot, because you get a friend. And also, when you pair these up with an elemental pop, that's great, because not only do you have a chance of keying up this ammo mod, but then that elemental pop might be putting any one of the ones you don't have, plus the one you do have, as an extra little effect. So, awesome there. The wonder weapons, any one of the wonder weapons can perform well if you know how to use them. I don't take them in with me, so I usually leave these guys behind. And I've actually either given away or destroyed some of the weapons cases that I've gotten for these. The Scorcher, for its movement capability, is definitely a plus. The Wunderwaffe is okay with its shock ability, and yes, it can deal with a horde in a pretty good situation, and the ray gun does do some damage output. But to be completely honest, I don't really ever bring these wonder weapons into the tier 3 when I go in there. Just a personal preference, and maybe if you're better with it than I am, more power to you. If it works for you, use it. And the final category is the classified section. And I really can't say enough about the classified section. And the only way to get these is to do the Dark Ether. And not just the regular Dark Ether, but the Elder Sigil version. And so it takes some doing. And like I said, you only get access to that after you've completed all the acts. So once you do Act 4, you'll be able to go into the Dark Ether and get these schematics. By doing the Elder Sigil, you're guaranteed to get them, so you really only have to do it once if you only want to. But they just can't say enough about these 3 items as far as surviving in the tier 3. So first, we'll talk about the Ether Blade, which you basically have a throwing knife that not only comes back to you and regenerates quickly, so you don't have to go pick it up like you normally do, but it has the ability to curve. So you could throw it, take out 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you can even get 4 if things work out well. And it regenerates quickly. So you can use your gun, take out a few, throw the Ether Blade. Whatever's left standing, take out with your gun. If there's still more and your Ether Blade comes back, throw it. It's also nice that the Ether Blade is quiet. So it's a silent kill, which won't alert anything around to your presence. And just, it helps out so much. Now, it doesn't work all that well on your specials and your elites and your mega bombs, but as far as trash guys and level 1s, perfect. The next one, Golden Plate Armor, is phenomenal. It's basically 3 plates in your vest, and when one plate gets damaged, it doesn't have to go completely away. If it takes any damage, after a few seconds, it's going to regenerate back up to full. The benefit of that's obvious. When you're getting chased or you're getting hurt, you don't have to worry about taking the time to replate up. So it just comes back unnaturally, and it keeps you able to just keep putting rounds down range and taking out the enemies that are in front of you to try to minimize your damage instead of worrying about trying to save yourself. So the golden plates are great. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't have to carry armor plates. You still can. Let's say in the event that all 3 of them disappeared, if you go to plate up like you normally would, it will consume one of the plates in your rucksack, but it immediately comes back instead of waiting for it to regenerate. So there are times where, it's getting bad, And instead of waiting for that plate to regenerate, you just take a little bit of cover, put one, maybe two in, let that third one regenerate, because it will very quickly, especially if you're plating up, and you're right back to full strength and right back into the action. So the golden plates don't mean that you don't carry some, but it turns you from needing 5 or 6 stacks of plates in your rucksack to only 1 or 2. And the dog bone is also incredibly helpful. It makes a tier 3 dog that runs around with you. Most people know that, the dogs are very strong, very tough. They can one-hit most things in tier 3, not the specials, not the abomination. And they can also revive you when you're down. But there's a little bit of a side note that you need to worry about when you have a dog companion. Just like real dogs, they will get themselves into trouble. They will engage something that has the capability to kill them, and they won't let go. And if you don't get out of the area, it's not going to teleport. It's just going to stay there. You may not even realize it. I've seen people with dogs where the dog is going after a mega abomination, and the mega is going to win that fight, along with all the other zombies that are attacking it. And it's just standing there biting the mega, biting the mega, biting the mega. So if you're not there to make sure the dog stays alive, the dog will not be there to make sure that you stay alive. So it's not a free pass, and you need to pay attention. But if you work with your dog, worry about it, make sure it doesn't get itself into trouble. Watch out for the special zombies, make sure you help it take them out. Then you're going to find this guy is going to stay alive. It's going to stay alive much longer, and it's going to help you take out kills. It's going to help you complete contracts, and it'll pick you up in the event that you do go down. Now, one thing that I do, I don't extend my stash, so I'm at 10 of 10, but you'll see I've got several dog bones, some golden plates there. Whenever I can craft them, even if I'm not going to use them, I will craft them and have them just kind of sitting and waiting in the wings, so that when I do get some time to play and decide that I'm going into tier 3, I don't have to wait for these cooldowns, because the cooldowns can be a little extensive depending on what item you're looking at. So that's what I usually do, is have them in the back. And here you're going to see, this is my standard tier 3 loadout. If I was going to go immediately into tier 3, this is what I'm going to go in with. Okay, so I've got my BASB battle rifle that I made, that I use. I know it's capable. I know I can take out what I need to. I've got the Renetti Akimbos as my backup weapon if things go bad, and also for speed. I've got my decoy. Just have Semtex. Honestly, that doesn't matter. I'll tell you in a second. And I use the Tesla Storm. Sorry. And I use the Tesla Storm as my field upgrade. So that's my standard weapons loadout. I'll bring a Pack 3 crystal and a legendary ether tool. Both of those are going to be for the battle rifle. I don't put anything onto the Akimbos, on the Renettis, because anything I get throughout the match, I'll use on them. Bring the golden armor and the ether blade. The ether blade is why I don't care about my Semtex, because it's going to take its place. So I usually just chuck that Semtex at something early in the match just to get a kill, make it useful. And then I have the 3 perks I usually bring. Juggernog, just for that extra health. The Speed Cola for the faster reload. And Stamina Up for the faster running speed. So I leave those last 2 spots open. The reason I do that is because depending on what I'm going to do, that's what I'll put in there. For example, let's say I want to bring, I don't know, like a dog bone, because I'm going to have a dog companion for what I'm doing. Maybe I'll bring something immediate for the Renettis, like a crystal or a tool. It just really depends. I like to keep those last 2 spots open, and I'll say to myself, okay, what are we going to do when we're in tier 3? We're going to do as many contracts as we can. So I'm going to bring a dog companion. Or if I'm like, you know what, I just really want to go in there and get the cargo contract done, so I don't really need anything in there, maybe I'll throw another perk in there, something that'll help me out later. Say I'm going after mercenaries, so I know that some of the pack-a-punches aren't going to matter. So really I leave those 2 open. They're very situational, and it really just depends on what it is that I'm planning on doing when I go in, what my plan is, and that's what I'll fill those slots with. But I definitely do want to put something there, even if it's just some perks that may or may not help me out, or anything really. Something should be in there, but go in with a full rucksack so you're ready to go. So that's going to be the end for this. I'm actually going to do several parts in this, probably 3. Can't quote on that yet, but I do want to show some gameplay and some methodology. It's one thing for me to sit here and tell you all this stuff. It's another thing to show you it actually in action. And then it's another thing completely for you to do it. But I hope this helps. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And I will see you out there, guys. Take care.